Welcome, everybody. Today on the Price Report, we have an amazing person here who's been studying the charts for a long time. Actually got me into Granado at 2 cents and some other coins, got into Matic early, and has had a lot of good insight as to what coins are coming up into the next bull run, what coins were bigger in the last bull run, and where Bitcoin is. Does a video every single day about 6 to 8 minutes long to keep you in the loop to what's happening with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. My man, CryptoLove, thank you for coming on in, man. How you been? How's your day? How you feeling?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here chatting again. It's always a pleasure to hang out.
Yeah, man. It's I have a few topics I wanted to discuss with you today. Number one, I'm under the impression, and I've been saying it now for a long time, that we have bottomed. We have bottomed. I know you're not supposed to guarantee bottoms and stuff like that. In trading, anything can happen, but there is a set of probabilities that are higher and more likely than others. And for me, it's simple. I did the weekly bullish divergence on Bitcoin. All right. Weekly bullish divergence. All right. You don't see it. You just don't see it. I looked at it in the Dow once every 6-7 years. I looked at it on gold once every 7-8 years. I looked at it on oil. It's a very rare signal. And it's one of the strongest signals in all of trading that I found from my research. And once Bitcoin did that bullish divergence on the weekly, 15,008, even by the time we were at like 17,000, the second I was able to define, even before that, actually, when we were at like 17.5, before we went to the capitulation of SPF, I was starting to call the bottom because the way that divergence was starting to form. Then we had an even stronger one. And since then, we've been kind of smooth sailing. So what's your take on it? Are you willing to go on a whim like that? Or are you still in between? What's your thoughts on Bitcoin having bottomed at 15,800?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it has. And it's a difficult thing because in cryptocurrency, I've only been in it for like 6 years or so at this point, but it's one of those things where 3 of 4 years, it's just miserable gut wrenching. And then 1 year it's fantastic. And it's just same thing over and over again. And it seems like we have reached somewhat of a bottom. It's almost surreal. I pinch myself on a regular basis because literally every chart looks incredible. You know, aside from some like charts for the S&P, which are saying that, well, there's a bear market indicator, probability indicator that's really high, but that may not affect Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Because last time I was talking with Bill Noble, I asked him about the 4-year cycle because I was like, this 4-year cycle, like everybody talks about the 4-year cycle for Bitcoin. There's the halving. We think that causes a peak. You know, like what's to say that's going to happen again? Doesn't everybody know that's what's supposed to happen? Once everybody knows it's supposed to happen, is that going to happen again? And he said basically with charts, if you see cycles, they just repeat until they're broken. So as of right now, that's still the same cycle that we have going on right now, where it just repeats until it's broken. And I mean, it's crazy because it's almost like bull porn, where every chart you're looking at is just like, we're the most set up that Bitcoin has ever been since 2015, when it like almost 100x. So what's the market going to do?
It's funny you say that. I have this weird way of explaining that. Bitcoin's kind of like a religion, right? And once people get brought into this religion, they don't leave. So me and you I jump in to the late 2016, right? I start watching videos, I find you. And so we get in and then we find out what the halving is. And we're like, wow, this is a halving. And we end up getting into Bitcoin, right? And you could say, yeah, everyone knows that the halving's coming. And if we know what's going to happen, why does it happen again? Because so many more people are going through the same metamorphosis, right? Today, someone's finding out, like they've heard about it, but they finally sit down and they watch a video. They finally deep dive, or they're waiting at SVB Bank for their money, right? And like they can't get it. So they start being like, and their buddy calls them and makes fun of them, like, I have Bitcoin. You were sitting at the bank. I'm sure that happened. I'm sure someone was more pro Bitcoin and someone else was at one of these banks. And their friend must have said, hey, man, like I've been telling you to put at least 10% of your money into Bitcoin just so you don't have to all have it at that bank, So even though it's supposed to happen, it's kind of like it pulls people in and it draws a new crowd. And then the old crowd knows that it gets more scarce because the new crowd's coming on in. So, and because more people get more learned about the halving, I think there becomes more intensity on every halving. Millionaires start being like getting more greedy, like I won't get as much Bitcoin. People like me, like even I'm starting to be like, dang, man, like if I don't buy now, like I'll have to pay 10 grand for 0.1. You know what I mean? Like right now, 0.1 is only 3,000. Like I start looking at it that way. I'm like, you know, one time, eventually one Satoshi will be a penny, right? Bill's a great guy. I've been talking to Bill on and off on the back end, want to get him on the show. He always seems to have a really nice attitude, and he has some really good insight into the markets. But yeah, so I look at it like that. Like we get more intense because more people know about the halving, and that creates this scarcity feeling. And whenever there's scarcity around human beings, they go crazy. So,
Dude,
you know,
absolutely.
until that ends, like you're saying, I see us going into the halving and getting a ripping, you know?
Not only that, but I mean, you factor in these spot Bitcoin ETFs. So we've had, I remember from last bear market where people were talking about ETFs, and then we got the futures ETF, which just basically crashed the price. But the spot Bitcoin ETF, I mean, theoretically, that can only drive the price up. And I say theoretically because that's what everyone expects, and then watch it do something differently. But Willy Woo did a calculation where if all these companies that are applying for spot Bitcoin ETFs, if they just put 5% of their assets under management into Bitcoin, that would drive the price of Bitcoin to $310,000 per coin. Just that alone. Not anybody else buying Bitcoin, not a feeding frenzy because the price is going up, not them putting in 10%, just 5% from the guys who have applied for a spot Bitcoin ETF.
You know, that's what people, I feel like Bitcoin's a ticking, I don't like to say the word, you know, but it's a ticking, you know, it's close because people don't realize how fast these things can go, right? And if another bank collapses and you get one more frenzy where people are just like, and honestly, another bank will collapse. Like they're made to collapse. Like they're set up to collapse. Like they don't have the money. They keep lending it. When you go to the bank, it's actually a loan, right? You're giving them a loan. Like, you know, they're not really protecting your money. Like they could just, you're basically giving someone your money and they're going to use it to create more debt. Every dollar is just debt. That's all it is. It's like, oh, we have dollar, we can borrow, we can use that to help other people borrow more money, you know, right? And then we can print more and then make people borrow more money and then create mortgages and all these awesome little instruments where we can trap people into more debt, you know. It seems funny to me. It seems like they have millions of people in like a blind Ponzi scheme, but you know, that's why we have Bitcoin in the first place, right? We wouldn't have it.
And there's very few things with a fixed supply. Like we don't see that because I think the universe is kind of like an expanding universe. But think about during COVID, toilet paper was a fixed supply. You remember what happened with toilet paper? Like people lost their mind. You would go into a giant like Walmart or Target or something like that, and they would have everything, but toilet paper, the whole aisle just gone. And people were paying premium prices for toilet paper because there was a fixed supply. And there's only ever 21 million Bitcoin. Who knows how many million are already lost? They estimate like 5 million already lost. Michael Saylor's buying up all he can. So, and now they just recently, 1 million addresses have one whole Bitcoin. So we have 1 million whole coiners. Now, that may not be 1 million people. That could very well be like 100,000 people or less who actually have a whole Bitcoin. But yeah, very interesting times.
Now, I talked to some of the, you know, there's always naysayers. There's always, you know, people that think differently than me. And, you know, what comes up every once in a while is, but don't a small amount of people own all the Bitcoin, you know, and doesn't that make it the same as the banking system? And if all the rich own, you know, such a big supply, then what's the difference? What do you say about that? Like, you know, I never asked you that question. I sometimes don't have the perfect answer for that, you know, so I'm wondering kind of like what you think of that answer, of that question, you know.
Yeah, so there with Bitcoin, there are a few people who own a large majority of it. So I mean, sure, they're going to get rich off. If Bitcoin price goes up, they're going to have more money than they know what to do with. But so what? There's already a whole bunch of people who have more money than they know what to do with. And I mean, they've done study after study where after $75,000 a year, there's diminishing returns on money in terms of happiness. So what are they going to be able to do? Yeah, sure, they can buy 20 Lamborghinis. How many can they drive at once? One. You know, how many meals a day can they eat? 3, 5, 7. So it's like, yeah, sure, there will be these elites that have an insane amount of Bitcoin. And yes, it will be a different people than potentially the people who have the money now. But the cool thing is, so like right now, the elites in, I don't know, the banking system or whatever, let's say they want to go, like we saw this happen during the war with Russia. And I don't pay too much attention to politics, so I may put my foot in my mouth here. But when that broke out, there was something with the oligarchs trying to leave Russia, and they couldn't leave with their money. And so there was an issue with that. With Bitcoin, when you actually own it, you own it. And you don't even have to travel with a ledger or travel with a paper wallet. You can memorize a seed phrase. What's somebody at the airport going to do? Demand your seed phrase from your brain? They can't. So like when you own Bitcoin, you literally own property that you can take with you anywhere in the world. And this is something that, at least to my knowledge, has never occurred in history. Because like before, you look at World War II, where people were leaving, they would have to leave everything. They left their homes, they left their possessions. They tried to take gold with them, and that was taken from them. So like you can't go through an airport scanner with gold or anything like that. But with a seed phrase in your mind, you can. And that's cool, because now all of a sudden, yeah, sure, there's some really, really rich people who got into Bitcoin early, who bought a lot of Bitcoin. Awesome for them. But guess what? You have this money that you can take with you anywhere, and no one can take it from you.
And like once one Satoshi, right, it divides into 100 million. Is that right? Once you divide it and you have more and more people owning pieces of it, it will become, I mean, it will be more decentralized than the central banking system. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I always tell people, I said, well, what do we have? What do you have now that you have to compare it to, right? And you have a central bank that prints money, basically, and then they realize, oh, we don't even need to control the money supply. We can just control the interest rate, right? Because that's the same thing. That'll control how much money gets supplied to the banks and how much the banks can lend out, and then how much money the people can actually have in circulation. The whole thing is insane. They're going to get to 2%. That's another question. Do you think they'll ever get to 2% inflation? You know, Jerome Powell keeps saying, on my mission to get to 2%. Do you think that's actually possible? Or do you think that is something that just will never happen?
Well, you know, it's one of these things where we were talking earlier how Bill Noble told me, where once you see a pattern, it's just going to continue until it's broken. Well, we look at pretty much every other system that has printed a ton of money. You think of like the Germans, World War I. I think that was a Weimar Republic or something. They printed a ton of money.
Yep.
You see Zimbabwe, you see Venezuela. I think Argentina's done this. All of these people who have printed a bunch of money, every single one of them, it's destroyed their currency. So, I mean, yes, it could. The US could be the first country that does something different, but the pattern's already there. The writing's on the wall.
Yeah, that's the main reason I started buying Bitcoin is no one knows exactly what's going to happen into the future, right? Unless you're a psychic, but I'm not. I'm able to, but you can see what happened to the masses in the past, right? And you can see kind of where the money led, right? where the crumbs lead you. And when I kept looking at all these different countries that had printed their money to zero, I said, my God, we're doing the same thing here. You know, I found out 2010, I said, they're going to keep printing. When are they going to stop? I started buying gold and silver. Next thing you know, you have a backpack of it. Get a backpack of gold and silver worth 40 grand. Eventually it becomes a liability. Like, what do you do with it? You know what I mean? Like, you got to throw it on your back. If you really, like, I had a motorcycle at the time and I thought of Armageddon, and I was like, I'll get a motorcycle to the end of Long Island, and then I'll get to a sailboat, and then I'll sail off. Like, you know, like I'm like thinking, and you're like, well, you need socks, because like your feet get wet, and then you get like foot rot, right? So you're like, all right, so I need a couple. Then you're like, all right, I need some socks for the kids too. Then I need MREs. Then I need, packed food. Next thing you know, when you're like, you're looking at the bag full of gold and silver, and you're like, I might not even be able to fit this in. Like, this is too heavy. And I mean, gold. Then I started buying like 1/4 ounces of gold because they were just smaller, and I could like at least like divvy them off. But it didn't make sense to me. It just didn't. And then I found Bitcoin, and I'm like, wow, I can, like you said, I could memorize the seed phrase, and I could go anywhere. You can't steal something from me if you don't know I have it, right? Like, what a great idea. So that's when I realized that I should start investing in Bitcoin mainly, and cryptocurrencies in general. But when I realized that they were just going to print the money to zero,
Another thing that I like that you do, I heard Alex Ramosi talking about this a while ago. He was saying how, like money, it can come and go, relationships can come and go, houses, property can come and go, all this stuff can come and go. But the one thing that you can get that will never leave you is your skills. So like you can level up you can get better at what you're doing. This is something that you've done and something that you teach people doing with trading, with your courses, all of that stuff, because you're literally an investment in yourself. And then that levels you up to where, yeah, sure, you could lose everything. And I mean, Bill Noble says this all the time, how like if you've lost a bunch of money, guess what? You're in great company. Every great trader has lost a ton of money, but you learn from it. That's the price of an education. You can go shell out $50,000 a year to go to some university and get a worthless degree, or you can learn on your own. You lose money. It's an investment, and then you learn from that.
Yeah, too many people get into trading. Even my buddy, like he's not even into trading at all. But he got into Penn Gaming. He got it pretty low. He put like $500 in when it was like $5 or something. And I think it went to $25, $30. And always he made like $5,000 or something. Or, you know, I think like 2,500, $3,000 off $500. And he comes to me and he's like, man, I should have put more on this trade, you know? And I was like, so you've never traded in your life, right? And he's like, no. I was like, how many times have you opened up a position? He's like 2 or 3. This was I was like, so your third time in your life, you 5 extra money? I said, that's pretty damn good, man. You know, when I was a beginning trader and I see it now and it comes down to mentality. Trading really points out who you are as a person. Like, do you make a picnic, get there, and then because you forgot the pickles, do you complain for the 5 minutes straight, 10 minutes straight? Like, you have everything else. Like, you got the juice, you got the sandwiches, but you just sit there like, I don't have the pickles. Like, that's ruined my meal. Like, and that's like someone who like had a great day of trading, but because they sold early, I only made $500 today. Like, you got to look at the picnic in front of you. Like, there may be some missed items, but what do you have, right? And trading made me far more grateful. And it's a constant battle every day. Like today, my business has like got a little bit of a hit, right? There's not as much interest in cryptocurrency. Views on YouTube aren't as high as they were at the scale, right? So I woke up this morning and I was like, man, I could look at the numbers and get a little depressed. And then I said to myself, I said, man, you built this when no one knew who you were. You built this when you one video on YouTube and you had 3 views. I said, you are the skill, Sam. Like, you are the opportunity. Like, and I said, if you stop doubting, if you doubt yourself, then you'll go, then there'll be nothing. But if you believe in yourself and if you build, then there'll be everything, you know? And so I was like, let's get that interview going with CryptoLove. Let's begin to build. Let's start the day. You know, I went outside into the sun. And any day is a day where you could either get depressed and go down the tube, or you can get excited and create opportunity. And that's really the battle between an entrepreneur and someone who stays in their life. An entrepreneur is constantly recreating themselves. Funny, the other day I read something, a true entrepreneur is someone with no safety net, right? I keep reading that. And I really, I connect with that now that I'm 100% on my own. Like I used to always have like a side hustle and a job. And if one thing went wrong, I had the job, or if the job went wrong, I could side hustle for a while. But now it's, you know, I started my company, I started my thing, and it's, you know, most people don't want to become that 100% independent and throw themselves to the wind. Once you do that, and that's like you said with trading, you know, and that's why I do teach the courses that I teach. And that's why I do, you know, basically teach every day on my YouTube channel. Like I'll be live later today, just teaching. And if I see something that someone hasn't paid attention to or haven't noticed, and it's funny when you're an analyst, it's almost like you get tomatoes thrown at you left and right. People want to just, you know, if you say something that they're convinced that's not the other way, they're like, oh, this guy's full of it. Or, you know, if you like, for instance, I've been talking about the bottom. One guy's like, oh, this guy's so cute. He thinks he called the bottom with one indication. He was laughing, you know. But like, what I like to do is show people, like, I just go over week, like whenever I'll make that statement on a random show and people will say something. And then you'll come to my channel. I'm like, all right, let me whip out the charts. And I'll just show you that weekly divergence is super rare. And it only occurs like once every 70 years. And then I show it to you. I mean, you tell me what you think. That's weekly divergence. Like, you tell me, you know, it took the top out of the bearish times and took the bottom. It usually should call the bottom. And trend analysis is big to me too. You know, when you make a large higher high, like when we finally broke 21.8 there on that lower scale, to me, like all we need to do is make a higher low and then a higher high. And Bitcoin never left the uptrend it was in. When we were in that falling wedge, everyone was saying we were going lower. I'm like, but falling wedges break up 68% of the time. Like, then I found a little bit of a flag on the 1 hour and I called the pump up and we pumped all the way back up to 30K. You know, it's like, it's not rocket science to me. Like a lot of times, like I'll watch your channel and you'll be like, this is a cup and handle. Cup and handles are supposed to go up 40. Like you make it simple a lot of times. You'll take out the bigger chart And it's funny, you were one of the first people to show me like the simple ideas, the Adam and Eve. I think I was one of the first time watching you. You were like, Adam and Eve's 40%. I think about you all the time now. I traded Pepe the other day, which was a meme coin. It had a beautiful Adam and Eve. I took the trade to the upside. And you know, it was supposed to do what it was supposed to do. I can't explain why, but lo and behold, the Adam and Eve went up more than 40%, which is so interesting. I always wonder how you made the transition from, you know, being a veterinarian to now doing what you're doing now. Like, when did you decide that, you know, you didn't want to go in a 9 to 5 every day? Or did you do it like me? Were you trading on the side? Then you made enough money where you could leave? Or were you just finding like enough is enough and I'm going to go all into trading? Because everyone wants to make the transition. That's what most people want out of this value out of this conversation, is that transition. They all want to make the transition. So I'm trying to, like, how did you make that transition from being, you know, someone who had a job and a career to someone who created their lifestyle?
I think it was enough pain. I did not like being a veterinarian. I worked emergency. Well, so to become a veterinarian, I went into debt $250,000. And so that was painful. And because of that, I couldn't actually do what I wanted. I wanted to be a large animal vet, work with dairy cows, but I couldn't because the monthly debt payments was more than I would have been earning as a dairy vet. So I couldn't actually do that. And so I ended up working emergency with cats and dogs, and like seeing some of the worst stuff: hit by cars, gunshots, dog fights, all these different things. And part of the job that I hated and was euthanizing animals, because even though it's a humane thing to do, it still wore on my heart. I felt like I was killing them. And you know, it's just weird to have something alive and you inject it and a second later it's dead. Like, it's a mind trip. And so after doing that for thousands of times, well, actually, I mean, I knew before working as a small animal vet that I didn't want to be a veterinarian because of the student loan debt, because I couldn't do what I wanted to do, but I needed to do that in order to get out of debt. So I just worked as hard as I could, get out of debt. While I was doing that, I started an SEO company. I also started YouTubing, and I still do stuff. I did a full stack web developer bootcamp recently. I just completed a master's. So I do a whole bunch of stuff on the side. It's not like it ever ends.
Yeah.
And I think that partially that comes down to just me as a person. Like, I've tried out that whole sitting on a beach sipping pina coladas, and after about 3 days, I'm completely restless and about to tear somebody's head off. And so I'm somebody who needs to keep doing stuff. And so now it's gone from working a 9 to 5 in a job that I hated to now having more of a direction of things that I do enjoy.
That's what it is. It's funny. For me, I did look at successful people, you know, watching Grant Cardone fly a jet and all this stuff, meet Kevin buy a jet and all these people on YouTube. And you're like, wow, I want to do all these amazing things. And then you also get sold that dream when you're at work. Like, don't you want to be on the beach, right? Don't you want to relax? Don't you have your time to yourself? And like you say, like, you know, me, I kind of got into this and it became a treadmill. Like, I didn't really realize, I didn't think about, I'm going to do a live show. Like, a lot of things you thought were perfectly thought out. And all the other businesses that I started, I tried to like map them out. And this one, I just kind of did what I wanted to do. I finally just said, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to do what my heart wants me to do. And I like performing. So I like the live stream feel because I'm like a performer. I'm free. I can make it up as I go on and that's a skill I have. And I was like, well, not everyone has that. Like, not everyone can improvise on the live. So I was like, let me do that. Right. And so I used that skill. Didn't really think much about it. But then what happens is on a live, then you're there every day. Right. It's not like you can record a video at 9 at night and put it out the next morning. Or you can record 2 videos that night before, put it out the next day. And then so I haven't had a whole day to myself, like since February of like 2021, really, where I've like gotten up, decided I'm going to go to the beach for the day. I'm going to relax with the family. I'm going to get home by 8. Like, if we're at the beach and it's a Saturday, I'm like, I got the show tonight at 8 p.m. Like, I got to you know, or if someone's like, hey, can you come to this wedding on this day? I'm like, I can't, I got a show at 8 p.m. Like I have, you know, it's funny. I've sacrificed a lot of my life, but like you said, when I did finally have a few days off, when I used to have a job, I'd have a month off for time. And I was like, oh, this is what I always wanted. And you're sitting there doing nothing, and you can only relax and have a pina colada for so long, right? For same as me, until you're just like, you start looking around. I start looking at buildings. I'm like, who built that building? I'm like, who's doing this? Like, what's going on? I'm like, there's so much more to do in this world. And it's an exciting place with more opportunity, and you can't just sit there and do the same thing every day. There is a balance, I guess, but I just go for what's in front of me at the time until the next opportunity arises, right? Right now, this is the pocket I'm in, and I take it for what it is. If I think about the fact that I have to live stream every day for the next 2 months, I may get some anxiety. So I just take it one day at a time. You know, like today.
That's the key.
You know,
that's the key. One day at a time, and that's all any of us can do. Because I mean, you mentioned, so like social media, they basically sell us this lie. It's all over the place. It's like, you need, if you have a private jet you can take anywhere, a garage full of cars, this, you know, model partner, a house in Dubai, all this stuff, then you'll be happy. Except you're not. Literally, almost without a doubt, almost every person I've met who has that stuff is miserable, on the verge of suicide. And they're all doing all these crazy drugs to try and help them with mental things, because you know what happens when you get all that stuff? You're still miserable. And then you got to realize, uh-oh, the problem's with me. And so it's a mind trip. And the craziest mind trip is, so like, I'm sure we're talking to a pretty similar audience to how we grew up, probably doing pretty well in a Western country. Well, guess what? We're already in the top 1% of the world in terms of wage earners. You earn over $30,000 a year, which in the US is pretty much poverty levels, and you're in the top 1% of wage earners in the entire world.
It's insane, right? It doesn't even make any sense, you know?
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we're sold this lie all the time. We're sold it so often that we think it's the truth. And I get stuck in it all the time. All the time I get stuck in this lie where, oh, if I just have that, if I just do that, then I'll be happy. And it's like, turn it around. If I'm happy, then I can do that. Because I encourage everyone to go after and get everything you always wanted. Like, I think Jim Carrey said something like that, where he's like, I hope everybody can get everything they always wanted, so they realize that's not where it is.
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah. Yeah. But when you don't have it, like when you're like one thing is financial freedom, like not having to go into someone else's job every day, like whatever limit that is, whether it's 75, whether it's 100, whether it's 200, whether it's $1 million a year, whatever limit that is for someone. I want to work. I don't want to work for someone else. You know what I mean? Like some people start businesses independently and they do all right, right? They make 250 grand a year. Some people make 250 million in a year. They don't know. The business they start just, you know, goes out of control. But it's that idea to not want to be, you know, someone else's puppet, really, for me personally. Like, I don't want to put my energy into someone else's business when I know they were making the majority of the cut. You know, I was like, well, they're, you know, I'm middlemaning and they're just taking my energy, and then they have 10 of me, 20 of me, and then they can go do whatever they want. Right. And, but you know, my dad recently passed, which I've shared on my channel. And some people may think I've shared it a lot, but I keep reminding it to myself, because I don't want to stuff it away. I want to be able to handle it every day and deal with it. But I thought about it, and, you know, I was always trying to impress my dad in a way, I guess, as I wanted to show him that I could be a business owner. I could do my own thing, you know, and I finally, you know, started dressing nice, wearing suits every day, hanging out with my dad. Like, look, Dad, I made it, you know. And like, funny, my older sister, I was like dancing around for attention, and she's like, we already loved you. Like we loved you anyway. Like, you didn't need to be successful for us to love you. Cause I was wondering why no one else was like patting me on the back as much as I wanted them to. My sister's like, we love you. Like what else do you need? Like, we always loved you, you know? And when my dad passed away, I realized, like, had I had Lamborghinis and a jet and all these things, like, I would still cry my eyes out on the day of his wake. I would still wish to hear his voice one more time, you know, and I would still have to deal with death, whether I had to go to, you know, morning therapy, whatever it is. And no amount of money, no amount of drugs, no amount of fancy dinners, no women, no girl, like, you know what I mean? Nothing that a human being could force into their life for joy could take away what I have to eternally deal with as I mourn and grieve my father, right? So, and it's as harsh as that is of an example, it goes down to exactly what you're saying. You can get all the money in the world. It doesn't, like, if I can't get over this and I keep getting, if I get depressed and I use that as a crutch and, or if I yell at people like, well, my father died, that's why I get to yell at you. It's like, if I use it as a reason to be upset all the time, right? Then I have to work on something internally now because, my mom could pass. Like, it's not over, right? Like, a good friend can pass. Like, this is life. Like, these are one of the big facets of life. I had a few close friends when I was a kid pass away, but I was like 14, and it was devastating, to be honest. Like, but I had known them a couple years. My dad, I knew since he's the person I've known longer than anyone in my entire life, right? I've known him since I was since I could say since, and to lose someone that you just was a part of your life, your whole life is tough, because you're like, well, now I have to live a different way. I can't make that phone call. I won't get that phone call. I can't get that advice that I really want at that one moment in time, or I just can't see that person or hear that voice. But yeah, no amount of money could do anything for you. So you have to build who you are internally, right? You have to build skills. You have to gain skills, whether emotional skills, financial skills, spiritual skills, meditation, right? Whatever it is, so that when these things do happen, you're not in complete chaos, right? You're able to handle them. And you're right, no amount of money can build you internally. Like, that's an internal process that you work on yourself. Again, back to trading, I feel like trading does a lot in that sense. Someone has 10 grand, they see someone else just made a huge futures trade on 10x leverage, and they dream of doubling 10 grand. And so instead of waiting for the perfect trade, instead of having a plan, they get emotional at night and they open 20x leverage and they wake up down 4 grand the next morning. And they're like, what, and then they panic sell, and then Bitcoin goes right back up. And like, what am I thinking? And, they were on FOMO. They were looking at someone else's life, thinking that if they had more, it would be better. But would have been better was to double $100 and learn a skill, and then be like, wow, I actually learned how to double 100. Maybe I can put in another 100. And then next thing you know, the 10 grand is 1,100, but it took a month or two. But you know what? You didn't lose it, and you're learning how to gain a skill, So that's really what I do is because I was lost for years. I didn't always understand trading. I eventually found trading, who God knows how and why, God blessings, I didn't have a father in it or a friend, but I found people like CryptoLove on YouTube. And that's why I love YouTube, because it's a place where people can take their life experiences and regurgitate them back to other people, so that they may not either get through the mistake they're in at the moment, or maybe not make the mistake as bad as the person who's telling the story. Right. And I get that from you too. Like, whether you don't always give maybe an entire life story, but you kind of like, you anecdotally add to the fact that you always haven't been in the perfect place in your life, and that you're still growing and learning every single day. That's like the key for everyone. Like, we don't have the answers, but we look for them. Right. And you didn't sit there and just like let your life go by. You decided to do something different. You live in different places around the world, you travel. And, are you ever going to come to Bitcoin Miami next year? And not doing it, right? Not going to see you at that.
I did. Here's why. I went to 2017, 2018. I went to so many conferences.
Okay.
I got like conferenced out. And yeah, there's just, I would love to come to hang out with everybody, because it's a really good time. But it's just like the atmosphere, the number of booths with attractive girls selling products they have no idea about, the number of scam booths there of people just selling blatant scams. And it's just like, yeah, I can't stomach it.
It's funny. I was like with my camera walking around, and there was like, I don't know, it was a Bitcoin ATM or something. And the girls at the booth, and I'm live streaming, right? So like, and you have to assume, right, if you're in the building in front of something, like there's a camera on, if something's going to be right. I mean, you're at an exposition, at an expo, right? And so I come up and I'm like, what product are you using? And she starts talking to me, and she's like, I don't really feel like being on camera right now. And I was just like, And on camera, I was like, worst marketing person I ever seen in my life. Like I walked away, right?
Yeah.
It was like, and I felt kind of rude after I did it because that's not who I am. I'm not trying to, but like if you're out there, I'm a cutthroat businessman. Like if you're out there, I just thought it was such a funny moment. It's like, she's like, I don't want to be on camera right now. I'm like, but you're like at a booth, like talking about, and I'm like live streaming right now. This is the perfect time to talk about your product. Like you have to be on until you decide to go to the back room or back to your hotel room. Then you can, but I had a blast just because I hadn't met the people, right? I've been like going on around the blockchain, talking to people behind the room or, when you're waiting to get onto the show, and then I'm meeting other people on different shows. And it's now there's like a community of people. Like there's, it's like, I don't know, there's like 30 core YouTubers that we all kind of see each other now at all these events. And yeah, I was like, I want to see CryptoLove, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a blast to hang out with you guys. But yeah.
You're funny, man.
I don't foresee myself doing that anytime soon.
Like I met CryptoFace. I didn't know it was CryptoFace because like I've never seen with a mask off. And talking to someone I know, and they're like, "Yeah, I remember when you did this for me. It was so awesome." And I'm like, "That's Face." I was like, "Your Face?" Like, "Yeah, I'm Face, man." I'm like, "Yo, what up, man?"
Yeah.
Picture together, and he's like, "Could you Photoshop a mask on?"
That's awesome. Yeah.
They're all just really interesting people too. Like everyone that found themselves on crypto YouTube. Number one is an insane mind. You know what I mean? Like someone who thought they could do something so different. And then definitely someone who had to take rejection, been kicked in the teeth 100 times and decided, hey, I'm just going to, anyone on YouTube has knows what rejection is, you know what I mean? And knows how to push forward. Like I see some YouTubers, I don't know how they do it. Their first video already had 10,000 views. I'm like, how do they figure that out? I've never ever do that. I go to the beginning of their whole, channel, and I'm like, they have 10,000 views in their first video. I'm like, did they pay someone? How did they figure this out?
Must have.
Did it go pre-viral or post-viral? But yeah. So as people are getting ready, I was gonna dish out some coins that I was looking at that I believe could 100x. I thought maybe you might have a few gems that you're looking at, and again, not financial advice. These are things I'm just looking at. CryptoLove, maybe researching. But I found this coin Caspa, man. And, the company hasn't paid me. I'm not shilling. I am shilling my own bag. I have a substantial bag of it. And I keep just buying it up. And I've been getting it at a penny and a half. It's now gone back up to 2.5 cents. And it's been on its own little bull run, really, for the last like 4 or 5 months. Like, yeah, it's had retracements, 618 retracements. But if you look at it, it's on an overall uptrend. It's got a really good tech. It's super fast. They've attached like the actual way that the way that it creates transactions is through like the pentatonic scale, through the scale of the piano. It's pretty nuts, like where it like goes by octaves. Pretty nuts. Yeah, so I've been looking at Caspa really closely and some AGIX coins. Like AGIX, I feel like is kind of an easy winner. Like it's low right now. I believe it could easily get to like an 8 billion, maybe $10 billion market cap, stuff like that. I still grab a little Cardano on the low. You know what I mean? I think we'll go back to a $5 $5 Cardano, and at least we'll go past 331 again, like we did when we went over 131. And yeah, but Caspa's my main coin that I'm looking at. I definitely think you should look it up. I like Casper too, even though they're really related in name, Caspa and Casper. I was able to meet the CTO in Consensus. Got a good feel of the team. It's a woman, and I don't know. I just like when you meet the people behind the project and realize how strong and how much compassion they have or passion they have for the project. I was like, man, this thing, I don't see how this thing can't go where it's going to go. Are there any coins that you're looking at that you think, and is this the time, do you start to dive into coins or do you start the DCA? Are you buying in? What's your kind of like quasi strategy here as we get, about a year into the halving?
Yeah. So I do think that now is the time to start solidifying your positions, because now you're going to find them at probably the biggest discount you'll find them at. And I think that's interesting, Caspa and Casper, because those are both ones that turned up in token metrics. Because I use token metrics a lot, looking at the AI picks for that. But also I look at the code reviews. So one of the ways, basically, the reason that I look at token metrics is because when I got into crypto, I knew some crypto, but there was one dude who was killing it. Everything he picked, like 10x, 100x, whatever. It was Ian Bellina, who created token metrics. And the way that he did it was he created a spreadsheet. I mean, this was before AI and before all the apps and everything. He created a spreadsheet and he said, you know, like, here are good coins that we've seen previously. They score highly. They have good teams. They have good technology. They have, you know, all these different things that he would look at. And then he'd take a look at the new coins and he'd say, well, where do these new coins rank? And whichever one's ranked highly, he would invest in those. And dude, they would crush it. And I was just like, people would ask me for picks. And I was like, honestly, I don't really know myself, but this guy knows how to pick out the ICOs. And so that was basically how I picked Matic. Is he was, I think we were doing a collab or something like that. And he's like, this thing has scored really high on our code reviews. It's one of the best coins out there. And sure enough, did 100x plus. And so what I like to do, and I don't remember any coins off the top of my head right now, but I have been adding them to my monthly top coins where I'll do like the top coins based on AI and then the top coins based on code reviews. Is if you go on Token Metrics and check out the code reviews, you can actually see the ones with the best code. And so coins that score over 90% on that are exceptionally rare. It's like maybe 1 in 50, 1 in 100 coins will score better than a 90. And so, yeah, sure, it's not a guaranteed thing. But when they're scoring that high, there's a probability that they're probably going to do pretty good. So I just keep my eye out on those that are that score very highly on there. And that's because at this point, I mean, it's impossible to predict the future. Most of the coins that are going to be exceptional, nobody knows about them right now. They probably haven't even been created yet.
Yeah.
But there are some coins that probably have a better chance than others. And I think, at least for me, going with something that's picked out winners previously, that's what I'm going to trust. And then also, like you mentioned, things like Cardano. I mean, that's going to be an evergreen winner because it has a huge community behind it. And I also think, like, look at some of the ones that maybe did very well this past bull run, but not as good as they could have done. Things like Solana or Phantom, things like that, that could have a second resurgence. It's possible.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. I was looking at I got another reason why I help people. So of all of that's why I love what I do. You know, tutoring, helping people. One of my students reached out to me one day and was like, "Hey man, I want to hook you up." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I bought an Astrobot for Token Metrics and I got 2 of them." And he got one with like a boombox, but they got hacked or something and he had to get like a regular one, you know. But he sent it to me and he said, "This is lifetime Token Metrics, man. Take it," you know. And I have it in so I have a little Astrobot now in my MetaMask wallet and I sign into Token Metrics through MetaMask. And I use Token Metrics. It's funny, on my weekly screen share every week. I go over Token Metrics and I tell everyone, I mean, that's a $90 value and you get it if you join my trading group. I'm gonna, you know, you're gonna go over it with me every single week. And I just pick, you know, the daily things they're looking at. We look at the weekly. We have a Token Metrics section in my trading group where you can see all the things that I'm looking at, things that I'm posting, things that I'm code reviews. You know, they had Game Shift out recently, which is an interesting coin. I've been writing down all the like newer, smaller ones. No Loss is on my radar now. There was like 10. And funny, even Ian, even after all that, he'll put out a video like possible 100x coins, like, and he did one like a week ago, even if he didn't have Token Metrics, like, and you just write down those 10 names that he put out. And I mean, those are like the 10 hot ones that he had really picked out of hundreds and hundreds of coins. So he's super cool with his information. Like he could be like a lot more sparse with it and try to like piece it out. But he seems like, hey, if I make enough people enough, then I'll be good. You know, I go under that same idea. I could piecemeal a lot of my information and try to like sell, you know, upsell some of the stuff that I do. And some business people would look at me and be like, "Oh, you should scale this. You should." But I'm always like, if I just help enough people, I'm going to be taken care of in the long run. You know what I mean? Like if enough people see that I'm giving it everything I have and they like what I'm doing and I look at the feedback and the testimonials and stuff. But yeah, so that's why I love Token Metrics too. Another thing that you help me figure out. And sometimes I don't know if I use it the best. I look at the ratings. I don't look at the code reviews. I'm going to start looking more at the code reviews now.
Yeah, check out those because I think now they probably have hundreds of code reviews. And out of that, there's maybe 10 coins recently, maybe, that have scored very highly. And so they're at least worth investigating. Because I look at it, I'm not one of these all-in people. because I can't pick winners like that. But I know that if I just put a little bit in all 10 of these, then hey, you know what? If one of them goes up 100x, there we go. I just 10x my investment and over all the coins, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my strategy.
I've been like, I don't know what it is with me, but like, I've been like, call me lucky, call me whatever. Even before I got into crypto, like I got into like a mining coin, and like I was able to like 4x or 5x my money. I was like, oh, whatever. And then I got into Canopy Grow Corp, and I got into it on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and then it got onto the NASDAQ. And I can't remember whether it was the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. I think it was the New York Stock Exchange. But to me, that was the first time I saw like actual arbitrage. Like, you know, it was weird. You couldn't like move it like a crypto because one was on the Toronto Stock Exchange, but it was the first time in my life where I was like, whoa, like I'm in on this smaller exchange and now it's on a bigger exchange, you know? And like, and I forgot about that. And then I was trading like a coin on KuCoin and it went to Binance. And I was like, oh, this is just like when Canopy Grow Corp got put on a bigger exchange. I'm like, oh, this is what happens. That's another cool thing about crypto is it taught me so much more about the legacy financial system that I didn't know about, right? I didn't know enough about derivatives, but now like look at all the derivatives you can trade. A lot of times you have to you need like $25,000 in an account if you want to short the market. There's like all these other rules. You have to be a day trader, and like there's all these rules to the stock market, you know. And when I came into crypto, I was like, what? You can just get 20, you can put $2,000 and just get 20 grand real quick. Like what the, like they can just leverage 100x,
No
200x
rules.
leverage,
Yep.
you know. And I always tell people not to leverage trade at all. Now I leverage trade like very little bit. Like what I do is I take like $1,000 and I attempt to turn it into $2,000 slowly. And honestly, it's been hard for me personally. Like I took $800 2 months ago, turned it into 11. It went back down to 8. I turned it into 11. It went back down to 8. I turned it into 12. It went back down, and like now I'm sitting at like $1,072. Like I'm up like a little under 50%, and it's been like 2.5 months of just like constantly, because it's for me. I'm a swing trader. I got a family. I got a lot of like. I always tell everyone, what you do depends on how you trade. You know what I mean? When I was 26, 28, 29, I only lived by myself and my girlfriend came over once in a while. I could day trade all night long, right? I could swing, you know, but now like I like to set it. I like personally like to swing trade. Like I like my trades to last 3 to 5 days. I like to use the 1 hour and the 4 hour time frame, but I'll still scalp smaller time frames. Like when the market's hot, I'll do crazier things. See, that's what people don't realize. Like when the market's ripping, you'll catch me scalping the 7 minute on my live stream, you know, or like doing something, you know. I'm going to be more risky when the market allows me to be more risky, right? I tell them like surfing, like say the waves are kind of really rough and they're like, they're sharp and like they're kind of crashing a little faster to the, you're not going to go and try all your new tricks that day. Like you might mess up and break your back, you know? But what if the waves are a little calmer, they're big enough, and like that's a day you might want to kind of be a little more fluid. So in trading, you don't force trades. You don't do whatever you want because you feel like it. Like you take the market, and the more you look at the market, the more the market tells you what to do. Like when you're first trading for a year or two, do whatever you want, right? Because it's what you want, because you don't know, right? So you're like, oh, today I want to trade, blah, blah, blah. 6, 7 years go by, you're like, I remember forcing trades on a Friday. Friday sucks. I'm going out camping this week. You know what I mean? Like I know certain days to avoid, not saying not to trade just because it's that day. But in general, like Mondays are horrible. They're false moves and they always have up and downs. You know, Sunday night into Monday morning, worst time to kind of begin your first trade. You know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, trades tend to act a lot better. They're a little more forgiving, you know, so you learn when to put more money in the market, when to kind of step back. And, but yeah, like I picked Phantom pretty early. And then I picked EGLD at $20 and went to $500. Like I'm pretty good at getting like a 20 to 30x. Like I almost expect it now, but now I want to go for those 50, you know, the bigger ones. Like I almost want the bigger gains, but you know, it is what it is. You got to be happy with whatever comes out at the end of the bull run, as long as you put in the work, right? You know, do you take time away from the charts at all? Like, do you ever take camping trips? Do you try to step away? You still make a video a day, you know, but do you ever do that? Like maybe film 2 videos and then take a day off, or do you ever get time out? Or, you know, it seems like you're always, every time I see them, they're like spot on to the day. So I haven't seen, you know, how do you balance,
Yeah,
you know,
I enjoy making the videos. Right now I've been doing a video a day for about 3 years. And so I enjoy doing it. And I kind of take time. So it's like this whole thing we were talking about earlier about the people who want the beach vacation, and they want the 4-hour work week, the beach vacation, wipe their hands and never work again. And it's like, that's not very balanced. It's not sustainable. I kind of like, I take breaks every day, so I try and live every day like it's my best possible day. And so that way I don't need these long breaks off or these extended things. And there are some things coming up where I may take some days off to do it, because they've been things I want to do for a while and I would have to take some time off. But it's for the most part, I try and incorporate my breaks into my daily routine.
That's what I tell people too, because like I work, they're like, wow, you haven't had a day off in years. And I'm like, yeah, but I take moments off. Like I might golf from 1 to 5 tomorrow. You know what I mean? Or I might take my kids to on a park, or we'll go to the beach from 1 to 6, and then I'll come back and I'll be in the charts till 10 at night, and I'll do my show in the morning. Yeah, like I basically space up. That's what the beauty of not having to be somewhere where someone wants you to be. You can work where you feel it's needed, and then take the time where you feel it's needed. And then you don't feel like you're the one thing I like to do is I like to camp and go sailing. And that's the one thing. So like I'm gonna have to get what is it, Starlink or something. I'm gonna have to find some way where I can like be in the middle of the woods and still do my show. You know what I mean? And what I think the internet will get more and more robust too as the years go on, and we'll be able to be even more remote. And so that's my dream, is to like live stream and like still be camping. You know what I mean? Like, or like, because I miss like a family or a friend of ours will be like, hey, we're going up to the lake, you should come with the family. And I'm like, yeah, do you have internet though? Like, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can go, So, but that's a sacrifice you make for things that you love, right? It's, that's another good point. Everyone wants to be on the beach all day. They want their own business, but there's going to be some give and take to that. I don't like to use the word sacrifice as much. It's kind of like morbid, but there's some give and take. Like you're going to have to give discipline and focus if you're going to want to live like what people consider a dream life. And there really is no dream life, because the second you work that hard for it, you're going to have to keep working that hard to keep it. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like you said, like, and if you have this like replay button where just money's coming in, you're sitting on it becomes pretty, it lacks value, right? The more you get for the less that you give, the more depressed people get. People don't realize like the free lunch comes with a price, right? And it can come with the fact of feeling lifeless and just purposeless. One of the main reasons I left the job I was at, I was a video editor. I love video editing. It was great. I was passionate about the tech, passionate about the camera work, all that. But a lot of days they'd bring me into work at 10, and I'd work from 10 to 6. And then be like, yeah, the footage will be here at like 1 o'clock. But like a shoot never goes the same way it's supposed to go. Sometimes the car gets a flat tire on their way to the shoot. Sometimes the actor shows up late. Sometimes something happens where it's like they only have one thing and they mess it up and they got to like redo it again, and it takes 10 more minutes or an hour. So you get the footage at 2 or 3, or they give you half the footage at 1, and they're like, oh, another hard drive will come. And so I would do my work and then I'd be there. And I can't tell you, towards the end of my career, how much I was making $47.50 an hour, sitting at my desk, staring at my screen, just like, and it's not like I could go start a business. Like, you're like, oh, I could utilize this time, but you don't know when you're going to get it. You don't know when they're going to, so you're just kind of like, you're always in limbo. It's not like you could be like, hey, I'm going to take a day off and work on my business now, my whatever, my entrepreneur business or something. So I would just sit there and wait for footage. And that's one day I start clicking on YouTube, because I'm sitting there, I'm bored. And that's really what got me into cryptocurrency. You give me a bunch of free time and nothing to do, I'm going to start stimulating my mind in some way, shape, or form, like, so that's why I had to can what I was doing. Like, I followed my dreams. I went to film school. I thought I was doing everything I wanted, but it was, and I wasn't using any of my talents. I wasn't connecting to anyone. I wasn't helping anybody. I'd go home at the end of my day and just be like, all I did was just play with this footage, I made my next guest needs no introduction for David Letterman, and I was like, yeah, it's a cool show. Like, he interviews random people, but like, is it changing the world? I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling that I was doing my destiny, with my last job, and I feel like is like going after what I love,
So last question I want to ask you. What do you think this next bull run is going to look like? You think it's going to be a multi-year type of thing? You think it, like potentially like a 2015, 2016 bull run, 2016, 2017 bull run? Or you think it's going to be like a quick pop off like we saw end of 2020, 6 months we'll reach the top? Or you think that maybe we're just going to go sideways forever, or you think there's not going to be a bull run? What do you think is going to happen?
It's interesting because you know, the last bull run was really weird. I'll be honest. It had like little run-ups in different sections throughout the run that kind of threw me off, you know? Like, yes, we have the similar cycle. Like, for instance, cake went out of nowhere from 60 cents all the way to 44. But I remember cake's high was like April, and then Bitcoin took over and ripped. And then like it was weird. It was like, when is the, like, everyone was like, when's the bull run? I was like, well, the bull run's here, but now it's here, but now it's over here. And like now Bitcoin's down again. And like some coins had like 2 runs, right? Like Phantom went all the way up, came back down, went all the way up again. There was that huge double top that everything that ran up with Bitcoin. So you kind of had these, like, it looked like the run was over, but then the run came up again. And because of that double top, it threw me off at one point. I'll be honest. Like it was harder to figure out when we were actually leaving the bull run, or should you stay in a coin or not. I got in at the end of 2016 before I even really knew that the halving had just occurred. Like I didn't understand. Like I can't even believe that. Like we had just had a halving in what, 2016. Yeah, it's so crazy to me. I must have opened one of my first Bittrex accounts and a Cryptopia account in the summer. I would say the summer of 2016, and then I would start trading into that October, and then 2017, and then I wasn't privy to like that last run. I'd have to look at the charts and like really study it, the 2015-16 run. I believe because there's more money in the market now, and it's because you're seeing some like regulatory clarity. Like I don't know how BlackRock doesn't get their ETF. Like when that guy says jump, the whole entire world says how high. So like it's gonna be weird. It's almost like a power struggle. Like you really gonna tell me that I can't get my ETF? Like, so it looks like that's gonna happen, in my humble opinion. You know, there was that one thing where, oh, you need to redo your submission, right? You need to resubmit. It doesn't look clear. I don't know whatever happened last week. A little FUD on Friday, but I see that passing. I see bigger money feeling more comfortable putting money into cryptocurrency. I see random guys that are just like people that just randomly look at price action and don't really look at charts. You know, guys, I know guys that they're real estate investors. They're worth a few mil, and they just wait for things to be super low. And they're like, oh, that's a buy. Like that hasn't been that low in years. I'll put, 20 grand on that and hold it for 2-3 years. Like they don't really look at the charts. They still do pretty good in the market. They just kind of buy low, sell high, and they have a long-term idea with patience. So I see people like that I talk to now, and they're like, what's Bitcoin at now? Like, wow, it's already back. Like, wow, I think they would have been able to get it lower. That's pretty strong. Like, so even the random like half analyst is paying attention to Bitcoin in a more confident manner. That to me tells signs that there'd be more money coming into the market. And I look at the market caps. We didn't hit 3 trillion in the last rally. I think we hit 1 trillion in the last 2017 rally, right? This one we hit $3 trillion. They're printing more money, so there's more money in the world. So there's more money to go into crypto personally, right? So I see us getting to like a $5 trillion market cap. We have more candy in the candy shop now too. Like before you'd walk in, there was just a DeFi lollipop, right? Now you got like the DeFi, you got like, you got metaverse chewing gum, then you got AI, you got more narratives, right? Which just pull more people in. There's more pizza toppings to put on the pizza, right? It's more exciting. I remember when Coinbase had 3 coins. Like I remember it when Litecoin I was yelling at everyone. I said, Bitcoin went from 500 to 3,000. I said, Ethereum went from 9 to 89. I said, this is $5. I said, this one's going to do it. I said, this is what they do. Like, I said, just buy the $5 coin. It's right there. It went to $400, So I think we're going to have a big run for sure. I think it'll be sustained, substantial, but I think it's going to be similar. We're going to get a top within 12 months to 18 months from the halving. And, it's going to get overvalued because people are going to rush in. That's one thing I want people to understand that I didn't understand first. Like when I first bought Cardano, you can be right and wrong at the same time. And what I mean by that is Cardano, great tech, amazing. You're buying the future. Yes. So you get in at 2 cents and you're excited. And when the market ripped and it went to $1.31, And I'm sitting there thinking, well, why would I sell this? I just bought Amazon at, you know, in 1998 or whatever, like this is the beginning. And then it went all, honestly, it's depressing to see it back at 8 cents again. I was like, really? Like, you're going to go all the way back to 6 cents? I think at one point it was at, I could not believe that. Right. And it hit me. I said, Sam, you were correct. You believed in Charles Hoskinson. You found a good tech. It was a great project. It was going to go places, but you didn't understand what overvaluation is. Like, you didn't fully understand what a greased market really can do. And so to tell everyone right now, like, yes, you're probably going to be right. Like, maybe, who knows? I can't tell you, but if you do your due diligence, you do thorough research, and you go thoroughly into everything you're looking at, and I believe you'll find some really good projects that will 10, 20, maybe 50x. But when you're up 50x, do not believe that that's the real value of that project at the time, because like, it's an overvalued extended market value that just like isn't real. Yes, you're buying real tech and you probably are onto something in the long term, but understand to take profits in an overvalued market. So like, that's something that I had to come to terms with and mature as a trader, because you think you got it, you did pretty good, you did your research. Now you have to realize that you got to sell that, because yes, you own a piece of history. Yes, you did good on your research again, but you're holding something just way too overvalued due to just the market pressures. So don't fall into the trap like I did and be so stuck on your research, and because you'll be right. Like, you'll probably have picked a coin that will be here 10 years from now and will change the world. But understand that you got to take profits in these markets when they get out of control. So that, to me, that, because you're sitting there, you're like, but I know I bought, I know I'm good at conviction, and I know I did my research. And so like that, because in your mind, you're like, I know I got good tech. I know Charles Hoskinson isn't going anywhere. I know this is strong, but you got to understand that when things get crazy, it's time to take some profit. And I say it like 3 times in a row, because I just really want people to understand that. So you can't be right and wrong at the same time, is what I mean. Because you'll be 100% on your pick, but understand that markets just, so the same thing will happen again. And it comes from the halving. It comes from Bitcoin's halving. Whenever, if there was barbecue chicken and buffalo chicken at some, let's just say like a buffet someplace, and they were like, the barbecue chicken is almost done, there's only 2 pieces, like all of a sudden everyone would run and like try to get the barbecue chicken. Like, it's weird. If you give kids 5 balls and you make one really bright green one and they're all like a dark blue, within 10 minutes, the kids are going to be fighting over that green ball. I can't explain it. That's just the human. So the second more people understand about this halving and the scarcity of Bitcoin, and the second they keep hearing about how shady the banking system is, and they keep watching incompetent politicians play games, it's just a billboard for Bitcoin. So long-winded answer, but we're definitely going to have, I believe we'll have a substantial bull run with more money, and we'll go, I'm looking at a 5, maybe 5.5, possibly $6 trillion market cap. There's just more money out here, and it's more comfortable for big money to get in. I don't know what they were trying to do to try to flush out Binance US and Coinbase. It looks like it was some type of play, I don't know, to give liquidity to EDX, right? That Fidelity and Citadel. Something's going on there where they got their own thing. My daughter finished a painting.
Look at that.
She can't stop. Beautiful, though. My mom's a really good painter, and she's got her painting, and so they've been painting together. It's been blessings. Yeah, but one last question I want to ask you is, after the next rally, right? Do you see yourself traveling anywhere different, doing everything, or do you see yourself kind of living the same type of life, just doing your thing, or do you have any different plans? Do you like real estate? Are there any other ventures that you want to get into at the end of the next rally?
Not really. No.
Kite surfing?
No. I kind of enjoy most of what I do right now. So yeah, just keep learning, keep growing. But I think investing in real estate is good. But yeah, I wouldn't really change much of anything. It's taken a long time to get to a place where I enjoy what I'm doing. So I would just keep at it.
You finally, you're at that spot right now. Who knows what the future will hold, though? You know what I mean? I might have to come fly and find you, and then take you on a magic carpet ride somewhere.
There we go. You, me, and Aladdin.
Man, I love talking to you every time. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of, just reconnect. Honestly, that's really what it was about. It just kind of, I look at my channel like my real life, and people that I bring into my real life, I like to bring out to the channel and let everyone meet who I love. And crypto love, man. The love for crypto is there. Again, I always tell everyone, like, maybe I would have been doing this. I mean, who knows? You never know what path you would have taken, but you were part of my past. So as far as I'm concerned, like, I appreciate you. And I always think back on when I first started watching your videos. And whenever I put out a video or I think about how I internalize your videos and where it got me. And so you inspire me to make content every day. And I just appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man, you're changing lives one video at a time.
Every day, man. Every day. Look, you haven't made a video every day for 3 years. And honestly, it's probably longer. You just had I think you had like a YouTube thing where you had to you had to just like get over the little, like the algorithm did that.
Yeah, where the channel got taken down for a while. Yeah.
I don't even like mentioning that. I'm always like that thing that happened.
Yeah.
It happened to me too. And I'm like this gives me PTSD.
The bane of YouTubers. Yeah. Tell me about it.
It's like you're not a real YouTuber till it's happened and you've battled through, Come back. Funny what happened to you, it freaked me out because I'm like, if it happened to him, it happened to anybody. And I'm like, he doesn't do anything. Like, he makes 6-minute videos about the charts, like, so. But blessings. Today's not that day. Today's a great day. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, love chatting with you, man, and we'll do this again sometime soon.
God bless you, man. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the flip side.